And so people in here, yes, it's happening. All right. Hello, everybody. So first of all, like before, we just be aware that this is being recorded. So whenever you come on here and interact with us, and you're here, with your picture, just know that everything is being recorded and being put on the internet. Okay. So before we start, I'm just going to go into gallery view.
Wow.
Hello, and then we're gonna see if people brought something. Oh, yes.
There we go.
There we go. Some people are having coffee. I see that. Yes. All right. Cheers. Skål. So the idea of this, the whole concept is called Cocktails and Courageous Conversation. And the idea came from me wanting to do, so the things that, my name is Rikke. I've met some of you before. Normally I do teaching and supervision in what is called acceptance and commitment therapy. And I get to meet all these wonderful people. And often what I do is pretty academic. I teach theory and techniques. And then I get to meet these wonderful people, and I wanted to create a space where we can kind of, like, it was as if we're hanging out in a bar, having a drink and just chatting about something that we find important and might be vulnerable. So this is kind of the context to what we're doing. So I know we're all in different time zones, and I'm just so appreciative for you being here, whether you are here actually now or whether you're watching this later on. So we are having, this is the real deal, we are having cocktails. I am having a Cosmopolitan that was delivered to me just before this started, right, Sarah?
Yes, I'm ready to start.
And what are you having? I love I love the story about your drink.
Yeah, so I'm having a gin and tonic, so supporting a local company here. So we have a place called Newfoundland Distillery Company, and all of their drinks that they make it from water from icebergs. So one of the good things about living here in Newfoundland, Canada, is we do get to see icebergs at certain times of year, and so there's a number of companies that make products from sort of that iceberg water. So the seaweed gin that I'm...
And you froze, Sarah. Sarah froze. Sarah, come back to us.
I know, I just dropped out.
You dropped out, you froze.
I know. Hopefully that doesn't happen again.
No, but it's, it is what it is. So the iceberg, you were talking about the seaweed and iceberg.
Yes, the seaweed gin that's made from iceberg water, made from one of the local companies here, which is delicious. So if anyone ever gets a chance to get to Newfoundland, once all these travel restrictions are lifted and our world is back to normal, it's a great place to come.
That makes your drink so much cooler than the rest of us. My drink came from, something else. All right. So let me just quickly introduce myself. I'm a psychologist, and as I said earlier, I work with acceptance and commitment therapy, doing implementation, like supervision and training in ACT. And I had the honor of meeting you, Sarah, and having a chat with you about actually a book that you are writing right now. So Sarah, wouldn't you be, I'm just going to find you here and spotlight. I'm going to spotlight you. Yes. Okay. Hey, baby. So tell the world because I know you, but I want the rest of the world to know you. Who are you?
Okay, so thanks for everyone for joining in. It's great to see. I see some familiar faces and some not so familiar faces, which, yeah, that's so exciting. So nice to meet everyone. So I'm a psychologist as well, and I did my training in Australia, and then I moved to Canada and to Newfoundland about 12 years ago now. And I did my PhD thesis on eating disorders, in particular anorexia nervosa. And I worked in that field between research and practice probably about 15 years. And then I've since gone out and done more general psychology. But eating disorders and body image has always been an area that I'm interested in and passionate about. So it's something that I've always got kind of on the go in my clinical practice.
Wow. And so tell us about the book that you're writing on.
All right. So the book is something that I've been, it's been in the works for a long time now, but me actually working on it is a new thing, because I'd be kind of held back by my own sort of thoughts and feelings. But I've always kept circling back to something that I kept seeing not only in my clinical room, but also in people around me. And when I talk to people, this whole sense of putting things on hold or delaying things or not fully engaging because of how a person feels about their weight. The things I'd hear would be, I can't do that until I lose weight, or when I lose weight, I will do this. And, time is so precious, and we don't know how long we're going to be here, or what's going to happen around us. So it really kind of saddened me to see such amazing people not fully going out there because of something like weight. And so it started to, I kept circling back to, what would happen? What would happen if we didn't wait for weight? What if people were able to find ways to put themselves out there and connect with who they want to be, regardless of what was happening with their weight?
I cannot wait for this book, Sarah. And I think it's such an amazing topic. And, that's what started all of this. I just wanted you to come on here because I think that so many of us recognizes this, like we're putting life on hold because of the stories that we're telling ourselves. I just noticed that just for this webinar, I was mindful about actually my own normally when I go on these, I put on makeup and I do all of this because I'm going on here. And today I chose not to, and deliberately actually to support or contribute to this notion that we don't have to wait for weight. We don't have to always look pretty. There's nothing that we have to do. And I love what you're saying, that life happens now, and what, the putting things on hold is really, really, I really recognize this from myself. Is this something that from this, all of the work that you've done, or does this resonate with you personally as well?
More sort of, a lot of it's from the work that I've done, and from the work that I've done, I've been very aware of it and conscious of when those stories come up. So it's not that I don't have the stories come up, it's they come up, and I'm very conscious and I'm sort of very aware of it because it's something that I've been studying and doing for so long. So I'm almost sort of like hyper alert at times to when the stories do come up. But when they come up, I still get hooked by them as well at times, and that can, and I've witnessed it from people around me, and sort of growing up, I've witnessed it from people. So it hits me because not so much my own personal book, but more of I've seen some amazing people be held back, and I've been lucky because I've been able to see them, but sort of other people haven't seen them because of something like weight.
Yeah. So let's imagine, Sarah, that I came to you as your patient or client, and I came to you and I told you stories about how I'm not able to live the life, how, I can't go to this party because I'm too fat. I can't join this meeting because I cannot get into the dress that I want to get into. I cannot do this presentation because, I don't look slim or whatever. So let's just say that I came to you with these stories. Now I'm mindful about talking to them about talking to them as if they are stories. But
Mhm.
can I just say that this is the way that I think that you and I would work around this,
Mhm.
calling it stories. And I know that when you're inside of it, it feels not like a story, but more like a reality. But so, but I came to you and I would tell you that I can't do all of that because I'm just, I'm too fat. But when I weigh like 40 kilos or something like that, then, then I'll go dating, then I'll go do presentations, then I'll join life. What would you like, what would your advice be if you were my therapist and I was your client or patient? What would you advise me to do?
I think that's, it's interesting to say that the stories, I feel like when we look at the stories, we're conditioned to have them. So it's, of course, it feels very real, and it's not, oh, this is a story. This feels very real, and it feels real because there's been past experiences that have reaffirmed those stories. So it's like, of course, you're going to have those stories because you've probably experienced something or witnessed something that confirmed them. So it makes sense those stories exist, or those thoughts and feelings exist. So a person isn't kind of broken or damaged or bad or wrong or anything like that, but having those stories, these are stories that we've kind of been conditioned to tell ourselves, and they're so widespread. And I think the impact of them, it's not just, oh, I feel a little bit uncomfortable in what I'm wearing, or I feel uncomfortable when I look in the mirror. It really does have a huge impact on what people do. So whether it's going to a party or going dating or making certain work choices and things like that, it does have an impact. So when I'm talking to people about those struggles, I really start to look at, what is important to them. Because I think a lot of the time, what's important to us kind of gets hidden behind weight, or it gets attached to weight. So it's like, okay, if I lose this weight, I'll be accepted by people. I'll walk into a room or into a party and everyone will like me more because of my weight. So it's not so much the weight that people are wanting, it's the important things that get connected to it. So I start talking to people about what is important to them. And if they're going to a party, what are they going to a party for? What experiences do they want to have? And often it's about those connections. If they're wanting to spend time with their friends or meet new people or things like that. And looking at, okay, what kinds of connections do you want to have? When you see your friend, what do you want to be? Like, how do you want to be? What sort of impression do you want to make on them? So I really kind of move weight aside and move into more what's important and how can we connect with that and take steps towards that, as opposed to kind of getting distracted and focusing all the attention on the weight piece. It's not to dismiss and say, okay, that's not important. It's like, yeah, this is out there, and you can still be the person that you want to be. You can still be kind, you can still be compassionate, you can still be friendly, you can still be all of these things. You can still make an impression on people regardless of where your weight is.
I think what you're saying, Sarah, is so profound. So I'm just going to dive into the first thing that you, so the last, I'm gonna dive into the first and then I dive into the last, literally. The last thing you talked about, values. Let's come back to that. It really, really resonates with me, and I think that the work that we're doing. The first thing you actually said was that, of course, you have these stories. Like, you're conditioned to have these stories, and I just love that you are speaking to this. Like, there's kind of this. Is there a gender issue in here? I'm not, I don't know enough about that. Do you?
I think there's, and I feel it's sort of, I might be more biased as being sort of female, but I think there is sort of a gender thing there. There is sort of a lot of the female ideal, and so there is a lot more messages out there. That being said, I think in more recent years, I think when I first started doing research on eating disorders and body image, there was a lot more focus on women. And in more recent years, there's been more focus on men, and expectations on them in terms of how they should look and rules attached to them. I think there's more rules attached to women, but men as well. And then in even more recent years, I've been working a lot with sort of the transgender population. And that brings a whole different set of rules and looking at kind of masculinity and femininity and how this plays out. This rule book plays out for them as well. So I think it's quite a complex thing, and everyone has their own messages that they've received growing up and that they've absorbed. But I think there is sort of a bit of a gender thing there as well. I think there is a lot of strong messages there towards women. And as much as you're seeing some stuff come in around body positivity and stuff like that, it's just a small piece, and then you've got all these advertisements and all of this other stuff that kind of undoes some of the body image stuff that is, the body positivity stuff that is out there.
So it sounds to me like regardless of gender identification, we're all conditioned, like we're all trapped in stories and messages about how we should look like and how we should behave and how we should be. And I happen to know, because we've spoken before, you and I happen to know that some of the work that you're doing is not just on like how I or you or that person interact or with their story or how they perceive themselves. I remember that your mission is kind of broader or bigger than that. Would you be willing to talk about that a little bit? Because I think it's so amazing.
Absolutely. And yeah, the work that I do, obviously, as a clinician, I work a lot with individuals. But this other piece came from me doing a lot of work with the individuals. And then they'd go out into the big wide world. And so in session, it would be great. And people would be like, yes, I'm going to do this. And they'd try and connect. They'd be like, I'm going to connect with my values and be me and kind of go out there. And they'd be all excited. And then they'd go out into the big wide world. And unfortunately, the world can be a bit toxic. And those messages are still out there. So they'd be trying to connect with themselves and be themselves, but then be so disheartened by what they would encounter when they left and when they tried. Like, for example, if you were the client and you went to a party and someone walked up to them and kind of gave them the up and down look and a look of disgust, then they'd kind of just crumble. They're like, I'm trying to be me, and this is what I'm encountering. So what I want to do and what I want to kind of enlist and kind of get other people on board is, how can we all work together to make it a safe place? So even if we ourselves might not be struggling with the rules around weight, what can we do to help protect those who are? What can we do to help this world become a safer place, to help people be themselves and throw out that rule book of, this is only these people can do this based on this weight. So the last part of my book looks at how can we kind of deconstruct and work together to, either reduce those messages. So if we're seeing someone behave in that way, we kind of challenge them or say, hey, that's not cool. Or if it's an environment where we might not feel safe to be able to do that, how do we go to the person who has been a victim of that and be there for them compassionately and be like, I don't agree with what they said. I think you're an awesome person. Like, you're so kind, you're so caring, you're so creative, you're so this. Don't listen to them, sort of thing. So I see the problem of struggles with weight and the messages in society. It's a big problem, and in order to make inroads on it, not only does there need to be change kind of at that individual level and helping people connect with who they are, but also there needs to be change at the level of society and helping the world become a better place so that the world can connect with what's important as opposed to something like weight.
I love, I so adore you, Sarah. I'm like, I love what you're saying. for so many reasons. One of the things that I love about this message is that what we do, like, so we want to target not only the individuals, but more like a broader picture and a broader perspective. And what you're also saying is that what you do, like what every one of you do, it matters. Like it matters not only the way that you see yourself and talk about yourself and limit yourself, it also matters how you hold others. So, you know, if there, that's one of the key messages that I want to take away from this, that we can contribute to a different world by, again, by the way that we see ourselves, but also the messages that we give to others, the way we encourage others, the way we look at others. And one other thing that I loved about what you were saying is that you were, when you said to like somebody hypothetically, and you're very creative and this and that, you spoke to other things than weight. Like, so you perceive yourself as somebody who has too much weight and you're creative and you're compassionate and you're kind. So like broadening that story so that you are more than your weight. That really, really resonates with me a lot. One of the things that I thought about, and this is personal, and again, we're at a bar, we're having drinks, people. So just know that you'll see the, you know, behind the scenes with Sarah and myself, and so we can get up close and personal having drinks. One of the things that I've noticed is that when I was younger, I was literally way smaller. Like I had less weight than now. And today I'm like, I have a lot everywhere. And it doesn't correlate that like that for me. So I remember then when I was literally carrying less weight on my body, when I was younger, I was way more like conscious about my weight and holding myself back. And today, and this might look different for all of you people, but today I'm carrying a lot of weight, and I also noticed that I'm much more like, okay, and I carry this weight and I'm compassionate and I am, you know, so it doesn't matter to me. Well, it does hold me back at times. We can talk about that later if we want to. It does hold me back. But I'm just noticing that there's kind of when I was slimmer, I was more conscious. And now that I'm more voluminous, I'm less conscious. So I think there might be a question in there as to, is it just me, or does this has basically nothing to do with your actual weight? What would your take on this be?
It's hard to say because I think there's an element of maturity that kind of comes into it as well. So like a lot of people, when they sort of look back at, oh, when I was younger, I would, you know, my body, like, I wish I was the body I was when I first thought I was fat, because
Yes.
that's, you know, it looks very different. But when I look at times when it's sort of, that's, my body was a different shape, I was also younger, and my maturity level was very different to what it is, or I'd like to, in some areas, I would say my maturity was very different. My sense of humor is still way back to when I was a child and I giggle at stupid stuff. But in terms of how I viewed the world, the times when I was more self-conscious was when I was younger. And as I got older, stuff was happening around me and my priorities and what was important kind of got a bit of a shake up along the way. So it's hard to say. Like when I think of my own personal journey, it's like, yeah, the times where my body may have been closer to that ideal were times where I was younger and things were different, and that may have contributed to there being more of a focus on weight. And then as I got older, other things have occurred in my life that made me go, no, that's really not important. The connections I have, you know, people in my life, that's what's important to me. Whereas I think back then, I don't view the people around me and those connections as important. So I'm not sure if some of it comes to maturity, some of it may come from, okay, well, I've gotten used to living and experiencing the world in this body versus the body I had before, and I've kind of adapted. So it could be a bit of that as well, but it could be with maturity.
Yeah, that makes total sense that, part of this could be like that we literally mature. And also like within this, isn't there also kind of a message going like so in my humble opinion, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about it more. We need to talk about it, everybody. We need to talk about it in a way that is non-judgmental and compassionate and kind, the way that you do it, Sarah. And I'm so appreciative of that. And like I want to have this conversation with my children now, so that like if there's the part of if there's the maturity part of it, don't we want to target like the younger people who are less mature, and how would we do that,
Yep.
Dr. Pegrum?
I think that's really important. And I talk about it in the book of when I look at myself and my own experience, and when I talk to other people, the seeds of kind of these messages about weight, they get planted at a really, really young age. Like when I think of my childhood, my mum she was a bigger woman. And from a very young age, I'd witness how her being a bigger woman changed how people would interact with her. So kind of like, you see it on kind of comedy shows often. The bigger character is the character who's the butt of everyone's jokes, and everyone makes fun of them, and it's seen as it's okay to make fun of them. So from a very young age, I was witnessing these changes of, okay, if you're a bigger person, this is how you get treated, versus if you're a smaller person, this is how you get treated. And then, in the schoolyard as well, I'd also see parts of that. So the seeds get planted at such a young age, and I think the research supports that as well. Like they are finding, studies of kids quite young being really, really unhappy about about their bodies and their size and things like that. And it's such a shame because they're just kids. So I think starting the conversations with kids and talking about what's important and being that person that you want to be, that's important. And that's more important. And it's sad that we live in a society where often that kind of gets pushed aside. Like even when everything with the pandemic first started happening, I remember seeing sort of all these things talking about weight and people gaining weight, or they should be doing using their time in lockdown to be exercising and all of that. And I was just baffled by it because I'm like, the world is in so much pain right now, and everyone's isolated, and there's that loss of connection and the impact of that, and people are unwell and dying. And then you see these posts on weight. I'm like, what is going on where you've got all of this happening in the world, and then this is being put forward as something that's important? So, I think sort of having conversations with kids starts it out early, but I think it's a bigger problem in society that the more conversations we're having and kind of pulling attention away from weight and going, okay, what's really important and how can we connect with that more is something that we need to be doing more of.
I love that. Focusing on what is really important. What would you like to be about in this world? Like, what are the traits? Like, how would you like to be as a person? How would you like to treat others? How would you like to treat yourself? And also inside of this, I'm not sure if this is what you were saying, but this is what I'm hearing, Sarah, that I also have compassion for the struggle, have compassion for the bigger picture. Like the world right now is upside down, and like all of us are in our pajamas in front of Zoom, and some gaining weight and some are not, and focusing on a larger picture than just our weight. What would you, so now, just before I said, okay, I feel that we need to target as well the young people because there's, because of the maturity part. So I just wanted to hear your take on this. Like, so imagine though, I'm with my children, and so one of my boys is in front of the mirror going, "Oh my God, I'm so fat." What would be a what would Dr. Pegrum, what would be a Dr. Pegrum response to that? Because I know, so I'm just gonna say, I think I know what to say because of the training I've had and because of my profession. But there would be a big pull in me to say, "Oh my God, no, you're not fat. You look, blah blah blah." What would be if we could affect the way that we not only respond to ourselves but maybe to others, regardless of them being children or not. Somebody says, "I'm just too fat," and we start going into the explaining why they're not too fat. What would be your take on this?
My first take would be sort of the going in with compassion, is
Yeah.
because that when a person is made, whether it's a child or an adult, when they're looking in the mirror and saying that of "I'm fat," it's not just "I'm fat." That's what you see kind of on the top, but often what kind of trickles down from that is all these other meanings of, I'm fat, I'm worthless, I'm useless, I'm no good, I'm a bad person, no one will ever like me. So when that statement of "I'm fat" comes up, there's a lot of pain underneath it. So going towards that pain and showing compassion towards it, and then connecting with the person for who they are. It's like, I'm sorry you feel like, it hurts me to hear you say that, because what I see when I look at you is, you're a beautiful person from the inside. These are all the, amazing things that you have that you can share with the world. I don't see the weight. And when I think of people that I have in my life and connecting with them, I don't see their weight. Like when I see them, it's the only time I'd see their weight would be if there's something severely happening with their health. And I'm like, oh, geez, I'm concerned because I don't want to lose someone I care about. Um, I see them as who they are. And when I'm wanting to spend time with them, it's because I want to spend time with all of the amazing qualities that they have. So when I hear people say sort of, "I'm fat," I come in with more of that compassion piece and then connect with all those awesome things that I'm seeing and helping them see that and trying to help them kind of connect with that piece as well and let them know, they're not alone.
It's just like, it really moves me when you say this, and I can literally, like, you're in Newfoundland, I'm in Sweden, I can feel the compassion all the way over here, and I hope that you guys watching can feel that compassion. And what a fantastic role model you are, Sarah, responding to that story, because I love what you're saying about that. It's not just the "I am fat." I was just doing a little detour. I was previously just the other week having a conversation with a woman that I'm seeing, and she said, "And now I'm asking too much." And I was like, just notice that the way we say this matter. You could say, "And now I'm asking too much." And I was like, and oh no, she was saying, "And now I'm asking for more." And I said, "And now you're asking for more." Like, isn't that amazing? And just notice also within that "I'm fat," there's also this like, "Oh, I'm fat." We never go, "And I'm fat." Like, just notice that within that story, there's this like inherent evaluation about how that is then wrong. And as you said, Sarah, all these stories about that I'm not lovable, I'm not acceptable, I'm not, all of that. So kind of dislayering all of that into a, larger repertoire of storytelling and meeting all of that with compassion. For me, it's just, really touching and moving. And, I wish I wish we could do, I wish we could do what you're teaching us. I wish we could meet ourselves this way, and that we could respond with others that way. Just out of curiosity here, there are quite a few of you here. And so I wonder if we could have you who are watching this with us now type it. I won't say your name out of out of confidentiality, but if you would be willing to type into chat some of the stories that you have about yourselves and your bodies and your weight, and so we can just get a sense of is it just me and Sarah? Just does this resonate with you? Like, what are the stories you're telling yourself? And again, I won't shout out your names unless you want me to, but just type into chat, what are the stories that you're saying about yourselves and your bodies? Checking the chat now.
And I think sort of the compassion kind of extends to not just how we respond, but compassionate for having those stories. Because a lot of the time when I'm working with people, and even times myself, I'm like, I look in the mirror and have that story pop up, and I'm like, you've been working in this field for all this time. You've been saying all these things to your clients, and you're having that story, like that disconnect's like, you should know better. And I've heard other clients say, like, this is, I'm being vain, or I'm being shallow. I shouldn't be thinking this. I shouldn't be feeling this. I should. And so they've got the initial kick of looking in the mirror and going, okay, I'm not happy with what I see. And then they beat themselves up for having that story pop up. So they kind of get kicked twice. Okay, not only do I feel that way, but then I feel guilty for feeling that way because I shouldn't be feeling that way. So it's kind of like kicking you while you're down.
I should know better. I work with this. I have one of the people in here saying, I think everyone sees that I'm getting fatter and fatter. So like this notion of people, like as if they're tracking one's weight and noticing the differences. Whoa, could we have more comment? Like, thank you so much. You know who you are. Not about weight specifically, but often thoughts about appearance can influence my willingness to be more outgoing or speaking up, showing up in social contexts, personal and professional. All right, so there's this like about not weight specifically, but appearance, and I don't know what this person in particular. It could be like I'm like caught up sometimes in my hair being too gray, or my skin being too saggy, or pimple, or like it could be like there's other stories to appearance than weight.
Absolutely. And I think sort of the focus of my book is on weight. And so you'll hear me today talk about weight. But when I look at body image, it is so much more than that. And
yes,
it does impact, like I know sort of even like you see my hair is a little bit funky. I also have tattoos, and sort of some people who I know who are on here who see me that may have seen times where I've been very self-conscious. So it's like, okay, people with tattoos don't do this. So if I put myself out there, tank top, you'll see the tattoos. It's like, okay, people are going to judge me and see that as, oh, she's not professional. So I think body image has, like, it comes in all kind of forms, and it has such a huge impact on whether a person puts themselves out there and how a person puts out there. And that always makes me think of, wow, how much are we missing out on? As a person and as in the world, as a result of that holding back.
Wow. Like, so, I have tattoos and I can't have that as a professional. I have colored, like, that's just, all right. I'm just going to read some of the comments here. As I am aging, I am 62 now. I'm physically less attractive, getting fatter, more wrinkles and sags of my face, losing my shape. So there's a story about aging and how that affects your body. Another person is writing to us, I'm no longer attractive. Another person is writing, I am weak. I am a failure. I shouldn't wear trousers because they make me look fat, even though wearing jeans is my favorite thing. And then another one is writing. I'm a little like you, Ricky, where as I mature and occupy a larger frame, I feel more comfortable in my skin. The skinny teenager was actually more insecure. I work in an ED service and offer this non-stigmatizing perspective to my patients. We're cultured into obscenogenic thinking from early age. Yes. I have lived, another person is saying, I have lived with discomfort about my weight for most of my life and do not know how to live that way. And another one is saying, I can't go to a party unless I feel good about myself. So I don't go to parties. And I tell myself that I don't really want to go. So, like, you see us
Yes.
going
Oh my
like
God.
this. My so and there's one more saying, I'm feeling less comfortable in my skin as I age. Hard not to focus on my weight. Feel like I can't dress the way I want or be who I want when I look a certain way.
Wow.
So just notice that even within uh, this little space of people, of beautiful human beings that are with us right this moment, Sarah, we're all having these stories that
Yeah.
there's something wrong with us. Like we're not just right. I want to go back to the person who said, like, my skin is there, I'm aging, and just notice how it's not like, oh my god, I'm aging, and my skin gets, it's like, oh, I'm aging. And so just the evaluation and the kind of devaluation of us as humans because of the way that we look. So I'm just going to ask you, and this might be a trick question, and it might, so Sarah, I know that, so you and I connect, and I just adore what you're doing, and I happen to know that when you and I met, you were telling me how you adore what I do. And so this is not about me, but I just want to say, you kind of, you can't, you and I had a conversation, and you were like, you were complimenting me for the work that I do. And so, have you ever then thought, I love what she's doing, but her ass is kind of too big? Like, would you do that?
Never. Absolutely not. Um, yeah, like I think that's when I think of the people I admire and I love, and the things that I look up to them for. It doesn't have anything to do with weight. It really doesn't. It's often like there's something that they bring that is incredible, and some of the most courageous people I've seen are the ones who have done stuff. Not that they were doing stuff without their own internal stories happening. It's the people who they've shown this courage and vulnerability to be like, yeah, I've got this internal story happening, and I'm going to show the world who I am. I'm going to do what's important to me. And you can see they're kind of being, the demons are trying to take them down, and they keep going. And they're the ones that I kind of look at and be like, wow, you are incredible. It's not that they are walking through life without any struggles. It's like, wow, I admire you because I can see your struggles, and I can see you being you in the face of those struggles. And I love to be able to see that person being them, even though those struggles are happening. And I find it, on a side note, I find it something that people don't talk about often, of how these body image struggles continue across the lifespan. So it's
Yes.
not like, okay, this is only something I need to worry about when I'm young and this is the scene. It's, I have this rule book follow me throughout my life. So
Yes.
it's not like I hit a certain age and, okay, all of a sudden I don't have to worry about this. It's throughout my life, I'm constantly being judged and told, this is right or this is wrong based on there's no kind of safe zone in relation to this.
And that is, again, I think that is so profound. Like, this story will follow us throughout life, and it does not stop. And just notice, so again, I don't want this to be about me, but I just happen to know, because you and I had a conversation about this in another context. Isn't it amazing how we're so willing to look at other women or other people and admire the things that they do, the things that they bring to the table, the things that change that they make in this world. And it's okay if they have a big ass, or if they have long breasts, or saggy skin, or if they're 62 and if their hair is gray, or if they're, smell a little bit, uh, or if they wear jeans and wear pants, and we're so much more. And again, I know there's sometimes we're talking about the message and the look that we give others and the way we evaluate others. But just see if you recognize that there's this like a more of compassionate and forgiving stance towards others, and that we allow others to be professionals and vulnerable and brave and souls and fantastic, regardless of the way that they look. And then when we turn that to ourselves, we are not as good as everybody else because our ass is too wide, or our breasts are hanging in all ways, or the hair is like, it's just like, what an amazing bias, like the way we look at ourselves compared to the way we look at others.
Mm.
Do you recognize this?
Yeah, we're definitely our own worst enemies at times. Like,
Yes.
as much as, yes, the world can be a bit of a harsh place, what we're saying to ourselves every time we look in the mirror or try, put clothes on, what we say to ourselves is often way harsher than what most people would
Yes.
say to us.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I found it amazing, like you said, just even with this, group of people that we have, today. And thank you everyone for sharing those stories. And I think one of the things that prompted me to start writing this book is I kind of got into this compartmentalized state where I'd be like, okay, when I go to work, I talk about these things, but that's just things that I talk about and have to deal with at work. This problem of body image is not that big of an issue, or it's only an issue with this subset of the population. And then I started to hear more and more people talk about it. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm biased because I work in the field and I'm just hearing it. And then I'm like, well, let's just test that out. So I did a survey and kind of did that, and sort of got people to ask their friends to complete the survey just to find out and be like, is it just me? Is it just my population that I work with? Or is everyone experiencing different versions of this? And when I got the results back, I think it was over 75% of people who responded were saying they didn't do or delayed doing or changed the way that they interacted in the world because of how they felt about their weight. And that was a real defining point to me, because it's like, oh, this is big.
Yes.
This is not just something that this group of the population experience. It's like, this is the norm. This is more of a norm than an exception for people to have these struggles. And it's more of just how much it impacts their life, not whether or not it impacts their life. So this is a really big issue that so many people and so many amazing people, like when I think of sort of people in my life and sort of people who are joining us today and the people I've worked with, there have been some really, really, really incredible people with so many gifts to give. And they're being held back, and it's like, oh, they've got so much to give and we're all missing out because of something like weight, because of something that we've been conditioned, stories that we've been conditioned to tell ourselves.
And so I love where you, I think I've said that 50 times today. I love what you're saying. I love just everything that you're saying, Sarah. And I just noticed right now there's this like, so the stories that one tells oneself could mean that we miss out on life. Like there's so many things that we don't do because of the stories we have about ourselves and our bodies and our appearance. But what you're also saying inside of this, Sarah, which I also love, is that others are missing out. Like, so let's say you were holding yourself back, like you would miss so much of life because of the stories, and we would miss all of the things that you have to bring to the that you can bring to this table because of that story. So the impact is so big, and it's so, it literally saddens me to think about how big of an issue this is. And what you're saying is it's probably not a matter of if we have these stories, because we do. It's a matter of how big those stories are. That's just like heartbreaking, and also very normalizing at the same time. Yeah.
It's such
Yeah.
it's such a big struggle, and so I think sort of coming together not only to help at the individual level, but changing the conversations, changing how we interact with other people, so
Yeah.
that it's safer to come out and connect with who we really are. Because I'm like, sort of people have shared of it's very hard to kind of put yourself out there in the world, and then when you get this negative feedback, you kind of go back in. Whereas if we've got allies out there who are like, I see you, and yes, come out, I want to see more of you, regardless of how you feel about your weight. I want to see you, I want to see you shine. If a person gets that response, they're going to come out more. They're going to show themselves more. So we can contribute not only to our own journey, but also the journey of other people. And it doesn't have to be huge things. It can be those little connections, those little acts of kindness and compassion, and connecting with a person for being the person that they are and the things that we enjoy about them. That can really go a long way to help people be who they want to be, even though they're having these thoughts and feelings about their body and their weight.
Yeah.
It's
So there's this like notion about shifting the focus, not to ignore, but kind of to expand, that you are more like, I'm so sorry for you and the stories that you're telling. It saddens me that you have these stories, and like, I have compassion for you in the struggle, and I see more, like I see something more and different than the stories you have about yourself. I love this notion of expanding and focusing on more than just that problematic story.
I think
So
it's a
just,
different approach to a lot of the time people see you should love your body and you should love this. And it's like, it can set up this internal conflict. I feel this way about my body. No, you don't. And there's this internal battle of,
yes,
versus going, okay, yeah, I feel this way. And this is all the other things that I am. And
yes.
how can I connect with that more? Not getting rid of this piece and that discomfort. It's just kind of moving more towards this other stuff and kind of diluting it a little bit.
Because I think that science shows us, like, if we were to stand in front of the mirror and go, oh my God, I love this, and at the same time you just don't. Like, if you were like, if the instruction was just stand in front of the mirror and tell your damn self how lovely you are, your brain at the same time would go, no, you're not, because you're too fat, you're too saggy, and you're too old, and you're too this, and you're too that. So that kind of self-positive talk doesn't really work, right? So there's this, like, I love what you're saying about, it's not about that. It's about embracing that you have these thoughts and that it's okay to have them, and to have compassion for that struggle, and then to focus on, so I'm beating myself up over my body and its shape and size and all of that, on my appearance. And it's important to me to be compassionate, and it's important to be kind, and I want to hang out with Sarah, and all of that. So there's this shift, and for me, that is totally profound. I have one more. In conversation with friends, when the topic comes up about dieting, what would you or Sarah do? Address or try to change the topic? Happens so often. I used to try to confront and redirect. Now I have given up trying to change. It is just so overwhelming out there. Like, I love this. like there's this story about dieting.
Mm-hmm.
I have so much to say. I want to hear from you, Sarah. What
I,
would your take? Like, you're in a social context. Okay, so we're at a bar, we're having a drink with our large asses and our saggy breasts and our gray hair and our saggy skin. We're in the pants that are too small, and other people start to talk about dieting.
I love that that comes up. I love food. Anyone who knows me, I'm a foodie. Um,
Yes.
so the thought of going on a diet is like, if that's what you want to do, but if this body is the price of me having some wicked meals with some awesome people, that's the price of admission I'm willing to pay. And I'm not
Yeah.
willing to give that up. Um,
Yeah.
I understand the struggles with dieting of like, depending on who's bringing it up, sometimes it's more of I kind of shrink away. Other times I'll kind of own I'm a foodie, and if this is the price I have to pay, as long as I'm healthy, you know, I don't want to give up that. Like that's a part of my life that I'm not willing to give up. I enjoy it way too much. So if you want to go on diet, you can. But what's important to me in my life are connecting with people, and many cultures connect over food. It's like that's part of my connection, and I don't want to give that up
No.
in doing that. So some people I'm kind of challenge, or sometimes I go that avenue. Other times I'll just kind of shrink away depending on the context that it is. But
Yeah.
so as you're reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the whole diet conversation. And as we're moving into the holiday season, and then in the new year, the whole New Year's resolutions and all of that, it's tough to navigate.
It is. And I really, it really resonates with me what you're saying about it's a matter of context. Because if somebody came to you and said, "So I'm wondering about this diet. Could you give me your take on that?" And then you could do that. But sometimes in a social context, it's more about reassurance that you're like, well, I don't, let's let's not go into all of that. I would just say that my take on that is often normalizing that we all have these ideas about how we should diet and this and that, and also honoring. And I love what you're saying, Sarah, about I love food. Like and this evening I am on the cosmopolitan diet. I'm taking I'm fasting on cosmopolitan, and Sarah's fasting on too. Like there's these ways of also like dismantling the seriousness of that, and honoring regardless of size and appearance, honoring that it's okay to like food, to like drinks, to whatever, to live, and
Yeah.
that other things are more important. I think that is kind of the takeaway that I take with me from all of the things that you've said to us tonight, Sarah, is that other things are important. I remember this client I had once who would, and I'm not sure this is the best thing I've ever done, I'm just telling you all about it, but I had a client who was so caught up on weight, and I literally wrote on the whiteboard, I wrote, like I wrote a great, like I drew a gravestone with a cross and saying, "Here lies," and then her name. And I said, she weighed 35 kilos. Just to put it into perspective, like if you are chasing a certain weight, and you can do that, but just notice how much you're missing out on. And so I would hope that we, regardless of gender identification, can go out in this world and own our bodies and be more focused on the change that we make and the people that we touch and the things that we engage in. And so one of the things that I adore about you, Sarah, is like you're not just talking about, like in every conversation I've had with you, you're modeling this. This is just, so I'm just going to say, this is nothing that this is nothing that you just say. Like it's not a speech, like you're practicing this. And I think that every person who comes into your practice with a regardless of the problem, you are holding them in kindness and compassion. And that, my dear, is one of the things that I love about you, the way that you see people. And, if there's nothing you guys take away from this, I hope it's the way, like, we can take away Sarah's perspective of the world and your kind and compassionate, the way you hold people in kindness and compassion. So I'm aware of time, like we could do this forever. And I hope that you'll come back on. And so it is 8:00. And so it's time to wrap this up. If there are any, I have one more comment. I'm just going to read it out loud. I have lost the weight and put it on again about 10 times. Oh, yes. I find it frustrating to see how people change the way they address you when you have lost the weight compared to when you put it on. They listen to the slim you and ignore the fat you. They compliment the slim you and say nothing to the fat you. When the fat you need the compliments the most. Yes.
That kind of typifies that experience.
Yes.
Such a real, and
yes.
that's why change can't just happen at the individual level. As much as I'd love to be like, okay, you change, sort of, you deal with your own sort of internal struggle, but it needs to go beyond that, because
it does.
That happens all the time, and we need to find ways of how can we counter that? What can we do when we see that happening?
Yes.
Or if we're doing things that kind of feed into that, how can we stop that? How can we change that so that a person isn't experiencing that, or isn't experiencing that sense of, I have to lose weight in order to be heard. I have to be this certain weight to be kind of looked at with respect. And like, we've got to work together to find ways that can't keep happening. It's going to take time for us to change it, but I think that's such a common experience that it needs to change.
And so the way that we talk to ourselves and about ourselves and the way we talk to others, it matters.
Yep.
So on that note, it's time to finish up. Like when your book is finished, my commitment is that if you stay on my list, I will send you an email as soon as Sarah's book is out there. And I will, my commitment to you, Sarah, is to tell the world about this. We need your voice. We need your book. We need your compassion and kindness. I'm honored that you came to have a drink with all of us. And thank you to you, Sarah. And thank you to everybody who's here with us live right now. To those of you who will be watching this later, I'm going to switch into gallery view, and I'm going to ask people to kind of wave their goodbye, like so that you can see me and Sarah and wave and say hello or goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. And yes, like, we all need to get the message out there. It's those little acts can make a big difference. They can have a knock-on effect, and the more people we're talking, the more of an impact it will have. But thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for joining. Little acts can have a big difference. Cheers, everybody. We wish you and your bodies and your appearance a compassionate and kind journey. And I cannot wait to speak with you again, Sarah. I cannot wait to read your book. Congratulations, you're a rock star. So cheers, everybody. See you soon. Bye. Mwah.